Our next speaker, he is an Agile trainer for many years now. He is an Agile consultant. I've been working him for the past few years. I've been on his several trainings and coaching sessions, and I really know that he is a professional in what he does. He is both a software developer, he is an agile coach, he is on lead positions in the companies that he's been to and is now. And today he is going to talk about one of, I think, his really favorite topics. That's my opinion, and he will say if that is true or not. But he was going to talk about topic why QA is the best developer's friend. So I'm really eager to hear what he has to say about that, and I hope you are as well. Please don't forget to ask questions to our lovely Marko Majkić in the Q&A section. Ask questions to him, and after he finishes his session, we will answer all of your questions. So, Marko, welcome.
Thank you, Ivan, and thanks Agile Serbia for the opportunity to present this topic. Actually, yes, this is one of the favorite topics because for some reasons I believe that this is a little bit underestimated topic, and that's why I chose to present this one. The main title is why QA is an important person in an agile environment, and maybe even better title and its subtitle, why QA guys and girls, not to forget, are the best friends of the developers in an agile world, and we will find out why are they best friends of the developers in an agile world, of course. Here are some facts about me. Yes, as Ivan announced, I'm the engineer and developer. Started with the programming long time ago. Started with agile implementation back in 2006. Hold a lot of certificates. Went through a lot of agile implementation, wear a lot of hats in software developer roles, management roles, coaching, training roles, and currently I'm COO and agile coach in TMS company. Actually, let's start with some basics, just to clear things out. What's a QA? QA refers to a lot of stuff. Of course, it's a quality assurance. Often it's refers to a system, quality assurance system. But most of the times we refer it to a role, to a person, professional, QA engineer, QA analyst, QA automation engineer, etc. And pretty often to a group of people, QA department, QA team, etc. And just to make the difference, quality assurance is not quality control. As a part of the process, as you can see on this slide, you have different phases of the production to make the product. Quality control is usually moved to an end, and you will recognize this if you compare this with our Scrum board or a Kanban board. You will find some similarities. But I also want to emphasize the significance of a QA mindset, which we need to have at every phase of the production, whether it is software or whatever production we have. And that's that's very important, what we need to have. This is just an example of a QA mindset. I recommend you to read, whenever you have the opportunity, to have the production system book. And you'll find there the term end cord. On a image here, you'll find the illustration of the Toyota production line. And you have workstations. On each workstation, every worker has a signal cord. Whenever he notices issue or a problem, he has obligation to pull this cord, and then team leader notifies signal, and then team leader goes to this workstation and the whole team gathers there. They analyze together the issue, the problem, and figures out how to solve this problem. So every worker, every team member, every team member on this production line has this mindset about the quality, of the importance of the quality. On the right side, you have the modern version, the button to be used in case of the quality issue. To move fast forward to Agile world, and we won't be focusing and repeating too much in the detail about the Agile. Agile is referring to Agile Manifesto and is derived from Agile Manifesto. It consists of 4 values and 12 principles, as you know. It's pretty abstract, and from these abstractions is derived very practical things, some practices. As you know, these values, you probably know these. We value things on the left side more than things on the right side. And people who created Agile Manifesto had really practical issues, so they emphasized things on the left-hand side. Why? Look this metaphor. When the tree was for any reason, bent on the left side, what you do? You take the rope and bend it on the other side for a while to straighten it up. So the guys from Agile Manifesto also saw that things on the right-hand side were too much important on their organization, so they needed to emphasize and to talk much more on the about the things on the left-hand side to make things work. So that they did something like this. Also, as you know, there we have 12 principles. And as I said, I won't go into the details. Now, you probably know all this. And to focus on a QA, in traditional software development, as you know, traditional software development, we usually call it waterfall, is derived from the production manufacturing management. Where is QA usually situated? It's verification phase. It's after implementation, and related to other phases, it's pretty much isolated, and it was waiting for other phases to pass. And there was, after these phases, a lot of work for testers to verify all the work done, and eventually to return something again for the implementation, and then to pass to maintenance. So I would say that verification was pretty lonely job for testers, and they would do it usually in isolation. A little bit different than this in Agile world, and when I say Agile, most of Agile implementation, at least by statistics, use Scrum. And as you can see in this cloud, we have Scrum team. And when I say developers, that means all the people besides Scrum Master and Product Owner needed for the work to get done. And it includes QA people, testers as well. And they are working, and you have on this picture, you have all the process shown, and they are working in sprints to get product increment and overall product delivered, right? And these are smaller teams, and they are working together, and obviously not in isolation, as you could see in a waterfall. But let's see a little bit more about how we are providing quality in these teams. We have something we call definition of done, right? And this is just an example of a definition of done. Definition of done on a user story level is a technical standard statement. This is the list of things we guarantee to fulfill for each user story moved to done column. So when we finish user story, we guarantee that all these standards are fulfilled. And these things are referred to Scrum team has finished. And this is just one example. This is what Scrum team guarantee to be finished. And this refers to all user stories. On the other hand, we have acceptance criteria. As you can see, mostly you have a Post-it note with a user story. You have a title, you have description of user story, and you have acceptance criteria. These acceptance criteria are high-level list of things that needs to be fulfilled for the user story to be accepted. But remember, high level, from the perspective of a user, and usually written by product owner. Not exclusively, but mostly written by product owner, and always from the perspective of a user. And to see how these Post-its are moved on our Scrum board. As you can see, we have different Post-its on our Scrum board. We have Post-its moving from to do, usually on a sprint planning, we are moving from a sprint backlog, from a product backlog to sprint backlog. Let's say that this is to do, this is a sprint backlog, and then moving during the sprint towards done column. Developers are taking from to-do, pulling user stories. Sometimes you split them into subtasks or tasks in development. And then usually when they're finished with the development, they are pushing into the testing column, usually, at least what I've seen. Sometimes what I've seen, that's more like Scrum Bun. There's a column ready for QA, and it looks a little bit like Kanban, as I said. It's more like a Scrum Bun, but usually no, they're usually pushing to testing column. And when I showed something like this to a friend of mine, he said, "Oh," and he doesn't know anything about the Scrum and such things. And he said, "Oh, this looks like a little houses with some piles, and you're just moving this to your neighbor, you know." And yes, this looks really like moving these piles to your neighbor. And QA seems to be really lonely here. And mostly there's more developers than QA guys. And actually, pretty often I've seen that things are piling in the testing or QA column. And guys from development were usually just pushing things into the testing or a QA column. And pretty often I've seen when the QA guy was returning user story to either in development or to-do column, developers would be kind of angry because they would return, "Oh, why do you return it? Why don't you just say to me what's wrong and I will quickly fix it?" Even agreed process would be that for the sake of visibility and you know, you never know how long it will take to fix the things. It's important to return something to either in development or to do better to do column. And that would create kind of animosity or, you know, bad atmosphere and not quite friendship atmosphere between developers and QAs. And that's something I've seen too many times. And even worse, you know, when development and QAs weren't co-located, when they were working remotely, as in these days of Corona, or even worse, when QA department or even testing companies were separated, it was even worse. So pretty often I've seen this happening. So what could we do to fix this? To fix this process? And of course, this back and forth takes some time, and you know, the team which estimated some amount of work to be delivered during the sprint wouldn't deliver in time, and that would be the problem. And here is it. And yes, developers, they have the mindset, how can I make it? They are the makers. They are thinking about these great ideas, about the, frameworks, how to use libraries, how to use, all these beautiful things, new stuff, how to make performance better, how to make things better. And of course, on the other hand, QA mindset is specific, and it should be. They should think, how can I break it? They are thinking about edge cases. They are thinking, what could go wrong? And that's really great. It's specific mindset. And they are really not bad guys. They are really helping to make the app bulletproof, or at least as much as they can. And as you can see on this a funny picture on the right side, developers are walking, with all these great ideas, happy thoughts, smiling. They just made a great feature, great performing, wonderful, and they are happy. Just moved this great feature to the development environment for the testers to test it, and bad testers are waiting, behind the corner with a stick to bang them, and then they are not happy, and that's what's usually happening with this relationship. And how to prevent that actually, here's the solution, at least one model that I tested in several companies, which really worked. If you leave QA people to be alone in this QA or testing column in your Scrum board, then they won't give you the full potential. You won't use their magnificent QA mindset they have. So you won't get what you could get. So instead of using QA as a quality assurance, you could get quality assistance, meaning that you could use this quality assistance mindset, helping QA, helping product owner with creating user stories, especially with acceptance criteria, and making user stories better. Also, I will explain in more detail QA helping developer to understand what will be tested in more details. Of course, QA will be verifying and validating user stories. And of course, if needed, and it usually is, validating UX, UI, and how feature impacts other parts of application. So, as I said, quality assurance and even better quality assistance. This is very important concept. Before developer starts to implement things, make tester and developer brief. What does it mean? That means just before developer starts to develop, make 10 to 15 minutes brief. Let them talk about what will be tested. First, build common understanding what will be built. If needed, product owner can make some clarification, but it's usually already done during sprint planning. Tester should present to the developer scenario and test cases which will he or she perform. So developer will know in advance what will be tested. So no surprises afterwards. If needed, developer will ask additional questions and some scenarios or test cases will be updated. So the goals of this brief is to build common understanding, discuss the details of the implementation, cover all known and detailed test scenarios. And you don't need more than 10 to 15 minutes. And after this, there will be no surprises. And afterwards, tester or QA's job will be much easier afterwards when he or she will be testing. This is very important concept. So test cycle, if you have, this is another important concept. If you have acceptance criteria written, based on this acceptance criteria, testers will write test scenarios and test cases. Even better if they write it in Gherkin, which is plain English, right? I will show you later how does it look. Even better if you automate these tests, run it on continuous integration system, fix defects, and circle again. I will show you the details. How it really works. You have user story, for example, login, as I showed you before. And one acceptance criteria would be when I enter a wrong username or password, I should get a warning message. This is pretty high level, right? High level, no details. But QA guy will take this acceptance criteria and put a lot of the details, concrete details just for this acceptance criteria. So feature is login, scenario is wrong username and password. And then we'll use given when then format. It's a Gherkin format. Given the anonymous user is on login page, when user enters username, this is parameterized for username, password also parameter. For password, then warning message is displayed. And then examples, and this is parameters. This is Gherkin format. So this is test written in Gherkin format. After this, we have automated test. This is example. Automated test written. This is implementation in Java. Just an example. When you run it on a continuous integration system, it will pass or not pass if you don't have an implementation. So this is complete picture. So you will write user story with acceptance tests. Then you will write tests or acceptance scenario in Gherkin. You will run tests on continuous integration system, and of course it will be red because you don't have implementation. Then just before the implementation, you will have tester and developer brief. So the developer will be completely clear what needs to be implemented. Implementation will be done, And when you run the tests on continuous integration server, the tests will be green and everything is fine. So this process would be perfect. Sometimes you don't need or you don't have capacity to automate everything, and you will automate just the most important or the most critical parts of the application, and that's fine. But so you can miss some parts of this diagram, but at least what you can have is tester and developer brief. So the communication is the key part of the system. Another thing which would be good to have is to write the documentation of these tests. So sometimes the developer would have the benefit of having these tests documented. I mean, if you write the gherkin, the developer could go to this document and read again what needs to be covered. But even if you don't have this document, you should have tester and developer brief. Communication is key for the agile. So this is really, really important. Some hints, because a lot of people were asking about scaling QA in Agile. That means how to increase number of people in Agile with the increasing number of people, developers, other people in a number of teams, growing project, etc. The first idea is don't scale if you really don't need to, of course. But as you growing your teams, and as you know, Scrum teams are relatively small teams. You will have a few testers or QA people in the Scrum team, but always have a QA as a part of small teams. Don't go with separated QA teams. It's not a good idea, because you will break the line of communication. You will have separated islands, and that will be the problem at some point. But also you should have the line of communication within let's say, QA community of practice, where a QA guys should share the knowledge, challenges, and solution within a QA. And I have a good experience within several companies where I helped them to organize like this. Also, as amount of work is growing for the QA guys, my suggestion would be to automate all you can afford to automate, especially on a regression testing side. Of course, you should prioritize the list, either the most critical parts or the most important parts, or whatever is the criteria for the prioritization. But automate all you can afford. At some project, the full regression was estimated to be 64 man days. So it wasn't possible to do complete regression testing. So we needed to prioritize. So that's something that should be taken into consideration. Also, my suggestion would be, when bug appears, if you can afford, of course, and good practices, to write automated tests to reproduce the bug and then to write the fix for the bug. Good practice. And of course, not maybe for the QA, but for the developers to manage the technical debt, to have a good plan to manage it. And the last, but very important, let QA people work on the smart and creative tasks, not the one which will be repeating all the time. For example, exploratory testing is really important. If you're I don't know, if you need to work on a regression tests every 2 weeks to repeat something, then you know it's on one side it's a boring. On the other side, you know, if you're repeating, it should be automated, right? So that would be my suggestion. And you know, this specific QA mindset and creativity could be used much better on a exploratory testing and in the other ways than on a repetitive work. And here is the example how you could organize QA community or practice. If you have several Scrum teams, no matter if these Scrum teams are working on the same project or different projects, they could organize themselves, for example, once a week or once a month or whatever is convenient for them. They could have a QA community or practice meeting or something like that to share some knowledge, to share some experiences, to share the knowledge actually. Okay, here are some fails in Agile. We're approaching time, so I will just comment some of them. There are just a few. I could have a list of probably hundreds of fails. Let me comment just one. For example, a lot of bugs found in production by end users. That usually means that the testing was pretty weak, and then you know what's happening. Then usually management or whoever is responsible blames a QA, and usually it's not up to QA. But what's usually happening, usually it's the third one. There wasn't enough time for a thorough testing, but there was a pressure on a QA, you know, just move it to done, it's okay. Or there wasn't enough time for making a test plan, or there was, that's the most common one, there was a pressure to release. So there wasn't enough time to test, just moving to done, etc. And for sure, there wasn't enough resources for automation, or probably no automation there. So that was just one comment for that. And of course, I didn't mention, but there's a lot of Agile technical practices. I'm speaking about all of these on a separate trainings regarding developers trainings. I won't go into the details now. And how to make things right for the QA, and the title of the training is why QA is important person, and why I'm saying this, you know, when I believe that QA and testers are underestimated. And then, you know, this is the tree on the left, and I want to bend this tree more on the right to emphasize the importance of the people and this specific mindset. And the people, QA people, in my opinion, are usually the people who know the application they testing the best, even in my opinion, most of cases, even better than product owners, all the hidden parts of the application they know. So I believe that it's important to emphasize the importance of the QA role. So that's why I give this title. And also I wanted to emphasize significance of collaboration of QA and the developers. And that's why I give it a subtitle, Why QA is the Best Developer's Friend. So, short recap, we have some organizational practices. We need to include QA people in all the role, in the whole process. This role needs to be included in the whole process. We need to grow collaboration between the developers and the testers with the QA people. We need to test before the implementation. We need to have clear definition of done and acceptance criteria for all user stories, and to have small releases and quick feedback cycle. And of course, technical practices as I described. So that was all from my side. And if we have some questions, I'm here for you to answer.
Okay, thank you, Marko. You can stop the screen sharing if you would, so we can see you in full screen. Great, great. I have a question. You at the beginning of your session, you talked about the importance of, during the whole session, you talked about the importance of QA, but you mentioned QA is there to see how to crack the application, crack the feature, or see how it can be broken so it can be better, you know, and make it more better quality. I would also, maybe, I don't know if you agree with me, and maybe you mentioned it, I didn't hear it. I tell to my QAs that they're there to make the product better. And how? Not just to find what is not working, but what could be better during the usage. I don't know if your experience is, do QAs have that mindset? So they're there to see the product, okay, see if it's not working, try to break it or whatever, just go to the edge situations, but also think about what could be better, what can we further develop in order for user to have a better UX or UI. Do you agree on that?
Yeah, sure.
Mm-hmm.
And that was on this big diagram, you know, QA helping PO
Mm-hmm.
creating a user story. In this phase, QA gives a great contribution, you know, if even during the prototyping phase, because, you know, I find QA very experienced. They usually saw a lot of stuff, and they have experience with a bad, with a good UI, UX, with different stuff, and they have using this UI, UX, better prototype, and the biggest impact they can have on acceptance criteria. The most of time, they give some tremendous contribution to acceptance criteria. They remember things, you know, most of people would never remember. And they fill in acceptance criteria with really some great things. not just the details they usually, derive from acceptance criteria, but really high level things from the user perspective. So they are really great with that.
Yeah, I joke with my QAs and I tell them that they are in Serbian oko Sokolovo, and people who are listening to us will know why. Because they scan everything. Usually when we develop, the product sometimes goes to me first just to review it, to see how it works, just to see if we can add something more, some new feature that would be better for the user, and then it goes to the QA to like jump into it in depth. And I miss some things, and they see everything, and that is why I really admire QAs, because they need to be really, really focused and think about what could be better, what could go wrong, and try. Will it go wrong? So I really share your opinion. Also, you mentioned that communication is the key, and I totally agree with you. What I saw, you mentioned some disputances between QAs and developers, some tough situations, but communication really is the key, because what I saw, if they can communicate, a QA has something that needs to be fixed, and if you just write that on Jira or whatever tool that you're using, and developer sees that, if he doesn't agree with it, or maybe on his device that's not the case, he would just move it to done. It works. But when they have a communication and he asks, okay, what were you thinking when you were writing this? What do you mean? And then they explain to each other, and then we come to the same conclusion. But when it's just using the tools, it's never good. So either live communication if you are in the office in this situation, or there is always phone or Skype or whatever.
Yeah.
But the communication should be there, present always.
Yeah. What I've seen, actually, when it's mechanical, as you said, in Jira, I just move this and my job is done. I mean, QA move the ticket. Then it's a problem. Yeah. But in this time, when people are working remotely, when people know each other, that's usually the case. But if you write to me as a QA, hey, I think that there's a problem with this feature you done. It doesn't work on this resolution. I have a problem with this button. Usual response from the developer, but it works on my machine. Yeah. That's it. But when I do the screen sharing session, then the developer really see that it doesn't work. Oh, because the screen resolutions are different or whatever. Then they're more friendly, yeah. Something like that. Or live is even better, of course. But in these crazy times, sometimes it's hard to have the live communication. Yeah. Then the communication is really the key. So yeah. I agree completely, and it should be more communication.
Okay, we are out of time. Thank you so much, Marko. Always a pleasure to work with you and to listen to you. And really thank you for joining us on the Regional Scrum Gathering. I'm sure that we will have a lot more opportunities to host you and to invite you to our events, trainings, etc. So thank you. I don't know if you would like to add something.
Thank you. Thank to Agile Serbia and Puzzle Software for organizing in these tough times a regional Scrum Gathering conference, and thank to all who were watching this session. Thank you, Ivan, as well, for a great organization.
Thank you.